Reporting from down under. There's news that's coming out from the Middle East that's extremely alarming. It doesn't seem to have made it really onto the mainstream news yet. I'm getting it from other sources. I'm getting it also from Lebanese media, to some extent from Iranian media. So I'll just, as an introduction, I'll just play this.
All right, guys, we've got some breaking news out of Lebanon. They're claiming a declaration of war with Israel.
So this is just a little cross-section of some of the headlines, mostly across regional Middle Eastern media. So this is from Al-Masdar News, which is based in Lebanon. Insane operations are Israel's last step. The IRGC's Soleimani. And this is actually from Reuters. It's the only thing from the mainstream media. Lebanon's President Aoun likens Israeli drones to declaration of war. President Aoun said on Monday that Lebanon had a right to defend itself, likening Israeli drone strikes to a declaration of war amid rising tensions between Hezbollah and Israel. And here we have the response from the Zionist entity. Israel warns any Hezbollah attack will bring reprisal on the whole Lebanese state. So that's Israel for you. Kill them before they can kill you. That's the very opposite of Jesus' teaching. And there's a few things here from the Daily Star from Beirut, Lebanon. Israel pushing region towards war. Recent Israeli strikes inside Lebanon, Syria and Iraq are a sudden escalation due to gains made by Iranian proxies, coupled with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's campaign for re-election in September. Hezbollah forces in Lebanon go on high alert, security sources. Hezbollah forces in Lebanon went on high alert Monday, hours after the group's leader vowed to retaliate to Israeli attacks on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon and Syria, security sources said. And then in the Gaza Strip, Netanyahu cuts Gaza Strip fuel transfers. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered the military Monday to cut fuel transfers to Gaza in half in response to rocket attacks from the coastal strip, raising tensions along Israel's southern border, in addition to those stemming from a renewed threat from the north and reported Israeli strikes on Iranian targets in Syria, Iraq and Lebanon. And this is going back to Al-Masdar News. Iraqi parliament group calls alleged Israeli attack a declaration of war. The Fatah coalition, an influential bloc in the Iraqi parliament, has called the recent airstrikes on the country, allegedly conducted by Israel, a declaration of war by the Jewish state, and stated that it holds the US fully responsible for Tel Aviv's actions. In light of this, the coalition has called for the withdrawal of about 5,000 remaining American soldiers from Iraq. So it's an address by Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. I will just play a couple of minutes of this and I will put a link in the description box below.
اللي صار أمس بالليل في سماء الضاحية الجنوبية دخلت طائرة مسيرة وطائرة نظامية لأنه موجودة عنا، ممكن بعدين نعرضها على وسائل الإعلام وبعدين بدنا نتفاهم عادة نحن والأجهزة الرسمية كيف نتعاطى مع هذا الموضوع. وأيضا حطام الطائرة الثانية هي ليست من نوع الطائرات التي يتم استئجارها هنا في المدن والقرى لتصوير الأعراس والحفلات. لا، هي طائرة عسكرية نظامية. هلا بالحد الأدنى اللي عندنا طولها قريب المترين وصناعة عسكرية محترمة. دخلت الطائرة الأولى في الليل إلى المنطقة المستهدفة اللي اسمه حي معوض، في شارع معين بحي معوض في الضاحية الجنوبية. الطائرة الأولى كانت طائرة استطلاع، مهمتها استطلاعية لأنها غير مزودة بأي مواد تفجير، وحلقت بشكل منخفض إلى حد أنه أصبحت بين البنايات. هذا يعني أنه هي عم تعطي صورة، مشهد دقيق معين أو محاولة في إعطاء صورة دقيقة للهدف المقصود. نحن كما قالت المصادر الإعلامية أو الجهات الإعلامية في حزب الله، نحن لم نسقط الطائرة هذه، ولكن شبان في الحي لما شافوا طيارة طولها مترين وواطية وصايرة بين البنايات، وهي الأمور قديش بنحكي بشفافية وبصدق بيساعد على فهم، لأنه الحقائق هي اللي بينبنى عليها مش الأوهام مش الاختراعات. فبدأوا برمي الحجارة على هذه الطائرة ووقعت. هلأ وقعت نتيجة خلل فني، وقعت نتيجة رمي الحجارة عليها لأنه هي أصيبت بأحد الحجارة، وهذا واضح في بدن الطائرة. طيب وقعت الطائرة بعد مدة زمنية بسيطة، يعني دقيقة أكثر شوي، دقيقتين، جاءت الطائرة الثانية وبشكل هجومي وضربت مكانا معينا. يعني مش إن الطيارة الثانية كانت عم تحلق وصار خلل وفجروها بالسماء، لا، ما حصل ليلة أمس هجوم بطائرة مسيرة انتحارية على هدف في الضاحية الجنوبية لبيروت في لبنان.
And clearly, the Middle East is on edge right now after a series of drone attacks. And I had to count them. I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal. It says over the weekend, Israel said it struck a military site in Syria to prevent a planned attack from Iranian sources. Then Israel went on high alert in anticipation of retaliation from Iran.
Right.
Then Lebanese officials on Sunday blamed Israel for 2 drones that fell from the sky over Beirut. And then later that day, a drone attack in Iraq killed 2 members of an Iranian-backed militia. Then, today, Monday, Israeli aircraft hit a Palestinian group in eastern Lebanon. Lebanon State News Agency said the attack targeted the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. All of that in just Saturday, Sunday, and this morning.
Today.
Now, if Israel maintains this pace of attacks, we could see a full-blown war in the Middle East by the end of this week.
Can Benjamin Netanyahu?
Let's talk about we'll start with, there was an attack in Syria.
Right.
So Israel struck Iranian military sites in Syria. Israel says that they attacked the Iranian sites in Syria because Iran was planning to use killer drones to attack Israel.
So we're seeing this theme develop today on the drone wars that are developing here. Israel's using drones, and they're also taking out the sites of their enemies, supposedly.
They're planning to use drones.
So we're seeing a whole new type of warfare develop here, aren't we?
It really is today. I mean, we're noticing. I mean, we all know that quietly, covertly, this has been going on for a couple of years, but this is the first time it's out in the open.
Right.
Drone warfare, drones attacking drones, and counter drone attacks, and this is where we're headed now in the future of war. Benjamin Netanyahu said it was a major operational effort.
So he's confirming that Israel was behind the killer drone strikes in Syria.
Oh yes, absolutely taking credit for it. A Syrian news agency, SANA, said that the Syrian anti-aircraft defenses detected enemy targets from Golan heading towards the area around Damascus. The news source said the aggression was immediately confronted, and so far the majority of the enemy Israeli missiles have been destroyed before reaching their targets. And Mr. Netanyahu tweeted, quote, "I reiterate, Iran has no immunity anywhere. Our forces operate in every sector against the Iranian aggression." Now listen to this. This next line was part of his tweet, Benjamin Netanyahu. "If someone rises up to kill you, kill him first."
Where have I heard that?
Hassan Nasrallah of Hezbollah said that the time when Israeli aircraft come and bombard parts of Lebanon is over. And he's referring to a second attack because Israel also carried out a very dangerous attack in downtown Beirut.
Right.
You want to talk about what they did?
Well, actually, they sent two drones. They sent an unarmed reconnaissance drone first, and then an armed drone that was following after. But the purpose of the recon drone was to find out the location of a specific target, and that was the associate of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard general. And and the idea was to use the unmanned drone to spot this guy. I mean, we're talking in a shopping area. I mean, where they're innocent civilians, they're just doing the day-to-day trade, having dinner, buying clothes, doing everything you do in a downtown business district.
It's the best section of Beirut.
And so it's like the Beverly Hills of Beirut, probably the best way to describe it. So this unarmed drone goes in with the purpose of finding this particular individual in one of the apartments that's there. And then the recon drone would come along to take him out.
And the plan was to take him out when he came out of the apartment to enter his automobile.
Right. And they would have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for those meddling kids, like the TV show says, because a young boy happened to see the unarmed drone flying around and took a rock and threw it at it and hit it and knocked it down. And that's what kind of foiled the plan and everything.
But then Israel had to send in the second drone,
right,
which was loaded with powerful explosives.
Yes.
Just think about what we're saying. Israel flew an armed drone loaded with explosives, flew it down the main street of Beirut while people shopped, drank coffee, talked, just went about their business. Israel's flying an armed drone down the center of the main street of Beirut, looking for someone to rise up and kill first.
Right. And basically, they've been doing this now, it looks like, for at least the past several weeks, because these drone attacks, by the way, Rick, the drones aren't flying in from Israel. They're actually flying in from Iraq. And so they're not even, exiting Israeli air.
Does Israel have military bases in Iraq?
I didn't think we did, but the U.S. has a military presence there, and we learned last week that they're obviously...
Doc, you just hit something. The U.S. has I don't know how many military bases we have in Iraq.
Right.
Are you suggesting that Israeli military drones are flying out of U.S. military bases in Iraq to attack other sovereign nations?
I've seen the flight paths of the drones have been published, and they're all coming from Iraq.
Which means one of two things. Either Israel has a secret military base in Iraq that the Iraqi government doesn't know anything about, or number two, the United States is allowing the Israeli military to use an American military base in a foreign country, Iraq, without the permission or the knowledge of the Iraqis to carry out assassination hits on people in another sovereign nation.
Right. Basically, it looks like Israel's just been given carte blanche. I mean, they can fly anywhere, they can go anywhere, they can do anything in the Middle East.
Well, Doc, we use bring it home to people. So what if Canada allowed Russia to put military drones with explosives in them and fly out of military bases in Toronto,
right,
and fly down the main street of Washington, D.C., and take out a general from the Pentagon?
Well, of course, we'd be, in an uproar. We'd be angry. We'd want to go to war with Russia.
It would be an act of war.
Right.
So if the United States and Israel did this in Lebanon over the weekend, isn't that an act of war against Lebanon?
And that's what some of the talk is in Lebanon right now. They're actually saying that this was actually, an act of war. Whether it was actually accomplished or not, it makes no difference. If Israel has the ability to just, dominate the airspace, dominate the land space of Lebanon, then they're essentially at war with each other, right?
Yes. What is the response of the U.S. government?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because Secretary Pompeo did actually have a statement regarding all these different strikes, the one in Syria specifically, but the other strikes as well. He had a tweet that came out yesterday afternoon. He says, "I spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu today regarding recent Israeli airstrikes in Syria." And if this is number 4 for the stills for control. There you go. "I express my support for Israel's right to defend itself from threats posed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and to take action to prevent imminent attacks against Israeli assets." In other words, it sounds like they've been pretty much given, the go-ahead to do whatever they want to do in Lebanon, Syria, anywhere there in the Middle East. I mean, does that sound like that to you as well?
Exactly. And Dr. Walid Faris has also confirmed that the U.S. has given Israel a green light.
Right. So, my support for Israel's right to defend itself from threats posed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and to take action to prevent imminent attacks against Israeli assets. In other words, it sounds like they've been pretty much given, the go-ahead to do whatever they want to do in Lebanon, Syria, anywhere there in the Middle East. And does that sound like that to you as well?
Exactly. And Dr. Walid Faris has also confirmed that the U.S. has given Israel a green light.
Right. So Walid Faris, and for those that don't know him, he's an expert on Middle East policy, especially as relates to Lebanese Christians in the state of Lebanon. This is number 3 for control. From what we can assess, the U.S. gave Israel a green light to use air power and unmanned force to contain strategic buildup of missiles and drones between Iraq and Lebanon. The Syro-Iraqi air fronts will be disputed between Iran and Israel. And then he goes on to add this very, telling statement: Tehran will either have to back down or attack, one of the two. And he's exactly right with that, Rick. We're pushing Iran to a point, or Israel's pushing Iran to a point where they're going to have to respond. Now, we already know that Iran has already advanced in drone technology, that they've, we heard the story a few weeks ago about the, different drones that the U.S. has either taken out for Iran or that we've observed. And they have really stepped up their, ability in drone technology. Plus, let's not forget, Iran is not some backward rock-throwing nation like they try to paint Afghanistan as being. Iran has, the ability, and it has a strong industrial base where it can actually produce military equipment. We saw them make mock S-400s here. And now we know that for a while they've been producing drones. They may have hundreds of drones, just like they've got hundreds of speedboats out in the Gulf. They may have hundreds of drones that they could imagine a swarm, an armada of drones flying in response to these continued attacks by Israel.
I got a picture in my mind, the Japanese Air Force flying to Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, in December 1941. Yeah. You can only imagine how many planes were in the sky.
Right.
Okay, so take that to 2019 and imagine hundreds of drones armed with explosives and weapons, hundreds of drones flying in formation to attack another country. This is where we're at now in this futuristic.
To leave, surrender,
Or die.
or catch a bomb. You know, one of those three things, because eventually they are going to say this belongs to Zion.
Doc, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, he said, what happened in Syria and Lebanon last night is very, very dangerous. The time at which Israeli war jets used to strike targets in Lebanon, while the usurping entity in Palestine kept safe, has ended. From tonight, I tell the Israeli army on the border, wait for our response, which may take place at any time on the border and beyond the border. Be prepared and wait for us.
And he also added to it, it could be 1 day, it could be 2 days, it could be 3 days. Basically, he's saying it's coming, but you don't know when it's going to come.
Right.
So this is really an escalation of things at this point, isn't it, Rick?
It is, you know, Doc, I have to just wonder, will Hezbollah, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Hamas, Fatah, will they coordinate a massive attack on Israel?